What is up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of FitBizU. I'm your host, Jill Coleman. And before we get into today's episode, y'all, we are getting so close to opening doors for FBA to waitlisters. I think I told you guys, but the date is September 2nd. It's the day after Labor Day. We're opening the doors for waitlisters who are interested in FBA. I'm going to be sending you guys all of the details as we get a little bit closer. And of course, if you're on the interest list for FBA, you're going to get an exclusive discount and some amazing bonuses that no one else gets. And so if you're on that list and you're interested in Fitness Business Accelerator, you can go to jillfitfree.com/FBA waitlist. The link is also in the show notes. And what I meant to say, that last sentence was, if you are not on the interest list, and you're interested in FBA, get on that list. So for those of you who are on, I think we're upwards of like close to 800 people on that list, which is amazing. And also if you're on that list and you no longer interested in FBA, that is totally fine as well. I'm going to be sending you guys some correspondence in the next few weeks, and you can always opt out. I'm going to give you the option to opt out as well, because for me, I really just want to send all of the details to people who are interested. So if that is you, get on the interest list. Link is in the show notes. Details are coming soon, but just want to say thank you guys for being here as usual. Super excited for today's episode. Today is kind of a little bit of a tangential conversation. I have been thinking about this because I've had a couple of clients recently who have been a little bit frustrated at the lack of, I should say, engagement, either engagement from folks in a lead magnet or engagement from folks in a paid offer, or just engagement from folks in general on social media. And I want to validate this. And this can be a really big frustration. And so I'm naming this episode Understanding Leads and Customers' Behavior and Why No One Does Anything. No one does anything. How many of you guys have maybe been like, people just don't read stuff. People don't respond back. People don't answer my polls. People don't DM me. People don't like my posts, right? And so I want to talk about this from maybe a different lens and give you an alternative way to look at this. Because y'all, if we are constantly frustrated and feeling resentful that no one is doing anything, despite all of the hard work we're putting into our businesses, we are going to quit this thing. And so I want to give you an alternative frame to see this from. And I don't know why I have this perspective. I don't know, like, at what point I kind of adopted this, but I don't think that I've ever had the expectation that people owed me anything. And I'm not saying you guys do if you feel this way. I just think sometimes it can be confusing. It can be confusing as to why, for example, someone would pay for a program and then not show up to the calls. Or someone would pay for a course and like never log in. Or someone would pay for a training program and never download the app. And it leaves us confused. And we're like, I just don't understand, because at the end of the day, you and I both want people to get results. And we know that if they are not engaging with the things that they buy or the things that they opt in for, the freebies that they download, if they're not engaging with those, they're not going to get a result. And so this always comes from a good place. I remember when I was a personal trainer for such a long time, I used to get so frustrated at my clients at times because I was like, they're not doing themselves any favors. Yes, they show up to the workout. Maybe they come late. Maybe they don't. Maybe they cancel at the last minute. Maybe they leave and they go to like McDonald's, and I remember just being so frustrated at times, being like, God, they're just like not doing what they need to be doing for their goals. Yet they were seeing me twice a week, or they see me 3 times a week, but the rest of the time they were sort of sabotaging themselves. And what I had to come to grips with is that not everyone cares as much about the thing that we care about. And as soon as you become a business owner, a lot of what you care about is getting someone a result. You're like, look, I put all this coursework together. I spent all this time creating this amazing group coaching program. I created all this time writing this sales page that you didn't even read. I have all these emails that I asked you to respond back to, and you don't even respond back to them. And so again, it's not this feeling of like, I don't know, I don't want to call it like martyrdom, but it's a frustration because at the end of the day, we have a lot to share with folks, and we spend a lot of time and energy doing those things that we believe can help people. So we get frustrated when people don't do anything. And I had a conversation with one of my clients a couple weeks ago because she's doing her first DIY course. And my biggest sort of piece of advice to her, or caution, was just realize that she's running it as like a beta group. She wants it to be a beta. And I said, you know what, for beta, I don't think it should be DIY, because if someone is paying you a little bit less money because it's beta testing, chances are they're not going to show up. And they're going to need a lot more handholding. And if you are doing something that's beta testing, the whole point of beta testing is to test out your methodology, test out your ideas, but it's also to get some testimonials. We want some social proof. Even if we want constructive criticism, we want some kind of feedback. And look, if people aren't showing up to calls, if they're not consuming the content, then they're definitely not going to give you any feedback, good or bad. And so you need to walk people through. And she was like, okay, I'm ready to do the most because I want to make sure people get a result, because I want to get them a great result so that I can get a great testimonial or a case study or a success story. And so I was like, cool, maybe the effort you have to put in is not going to be commensurate with the price point. But if you want people to follow through, you're going to have to do the most. And so I want to talk about this because I want to give you guys just a little bit of context. I feel like a lot of us can feel very frustrated or feeling let down when people are not paying attention to our content as much as we would like them to. They're not liking posts, they're not commenting on things. Maybe they don't know what's going on in our business, right? They're not really paying attention to stuff. This is the example, like the biggest example I can give you guys, quintessential, is you've been working on a new program or product for months and you are talking about it a lot. Maybe you have a wait list going and it's like all you can think about. You're spending all your time on this. You're writing emails, you're doing social media posts. You spent time and effort all day on the sales page. It's a labor of love. Like you have all of this time and energy invested in this product launch. And you're like, okay, the week's coming up, the day's coming up. I'm going to open my cart. And you post on social media, you send an email to your list, the doors are open. And it's crickets. And you're like, where are all the people? Where are they? And we start to spiral. We start to get ourselves to the point where we think like, no one cares. No one's going to buy this thing. And the problem is what I call the attention differential. The attention differential is the difference between how much and how big of a part of our life our business is. It's all we can think about. It's all the time and energy we spend on stuff. It's this idea that everything for us is like, it's all we can think about. We're spending so much time, so much energy, weeks and months getting ready for this thing. And then they're not nearly even close to thinking about it as much as we are. But here's the thing, y'all. Why would they? Why would someone be paying attention to our business as much as we are, or even close to as much as we are? For us, it's our baby. It's our personal brand. It's the only thing we can think about. And yet, when we put our creation out into the world, this thing we've been spending weeks and months getting ready, and we don't get back any sort of attention, maybe we make a sale or two the first day, but it's not nearly to the level that we think it should be for all the time and energy we've put in. And I want to bring us back to that word should, because in my mind, the word should is where disappointment stems from. So if we think about it, I'm like, all right, I just announced to the world that this thing is open. I post on social media, I send an email to my list. I have to remember how people are consuming content. They are literally seeing this thing at a red light. They are literally scrolling at their son's soccer game. They are literally seeing this thing between appointments at work. They are maybe, I don't know, maybe they get your email on a Monday morning and they're like, I have 100 emails to get through. And so we have to remember that there is so much competition and competing priorities for the person's attention. And yet for us, it's the only thing we can think of. And so for us, we've been spending so much time and energy and we're so excited for it. And then it feels like a letdown. And we're worried, or we're worried, but we're frustrated that people aren't paying attention to our open cart. They're not paying attention to like the day it's open, right? They're not opening our emails as much as we want them to. Maybe you have a Facebook group. Maybe you have a closed Facebook group. I heard this quite a bit. This is a huge complaint, which is I have this group and I'm posting in there and no one's engaging. This could be a free group. This could be a paid group even. Maybe you're doing a paid group and you're like, no one is engaging. Or maybe people aren't showing up to live trainings. Maybe you're doing a free training, no one shows up, or maybe a couple people show up. Maybe you do paid training and not everyone shows up. And you're like, these people are paying for it. Why are they not showing? Maybe they're not doing check-ins. Maybe they're one-on-one client and they just start ghosting you. And it's so confusing to us because we're like, you paid for this thing. Maybe they're not responding back to your emails or your texts. And it's so frustrating. Ultimately, I believe it's frustrating because we feel like on some level we're not doing something right or we're not doing right by them. This is also on social media. People are not engaging in polls. I hear this quite a bit. My people just don't respond to polls. I put up a question box and it's crickets. No one ever asks a question. No one's reading stuff. I send 3 reminder emails and people are still asking me what time the webinar is at. I have this clearly outlined on the sales page and people are still in my inbox asking me this. People aren't downloading an app. Like, so maybe you have a free trial, maybe you have a fitness app and you're like, hey, it's a free trial. You get 7 days free for this fitness app. And they don't even fucking download it. And you're like, why? Why don't they do it? They signed up for it. They're not following through. They're just not engaging in general. And this can be really disappointing and it can be really discouraging. And so, what I try to remember is the attention differential because it always comes back to that. For us, it's the only thing we can think about. For them, it's like one of like 20 things that's on their plate for today. So, I want to talk about this. How can we kind of solve this, or how can we solve for this, or how can we improve this? So, at a high level, right? High level, before we get into like tactics and strategies, at a high level, I do believe that we can, number one, build a brand with a lot of connection, a lot of relatedness, a lot of authority, and a lot of consistency. So I'm going to say it again, building a brand, which takes time, by the way, building a brand with a lot of connection, a lot of relatedness, a lot of authority, and a lot of consistency. The Movement Maestro is a great example of this. So Dr. Shante Cofield, you guys follow her, the Movement Maestro on social media, and she's one of my best friends, and she's also a business partner of mine. And she's so great at brand. And so if someone like wants to grow their brand or whatever, like wants to build relationships on social media, I always send them to Shante because she has a very, what's the word? Very generous. She's very energetically generous. She has a lot of connection and she shares a lot. She shares a lot about her personal life, or she shares what she's doing, who she's with. Like she kind of shares a lot. She's pulled back a little bit recently, but historically, she has shared a lot with her audience. And there is a lot of connection there. They feel like if we live next door to each other, we'd be friends. And so that goes a long way, y'all. So I wrote here, and a lot of my mastermind members are at this level too, where they share on their stories consistently. I've said this before. I think Instagram stories, Facebook stories are the best place for you guys to build relationships, build rapport, and build connection. But it takes time and it takes reps. I can't watch someone's story one time and be like, oh, we're besties. Like it takes time. I would say Carrots and Cake, Tina Hubert. She's my mastermind. She does a great job with this. Trish, who's also my mastermind, Lift with Trish. She does a great job with this. And they talk on their stories all the time, right? Face to camera. They share their family. They share what they're up to. A lot of my mastermind members do this amazingly well. And so, at a high level, y'all, if you want people to care about your brand, you have to share quite a bit. You have to share a lot. When I say authority, that means that someone sees you as an authority in what you do, but then also there's connection and relatedness. And then extend your time horizon. It's not going to take 1 month or 1 week for someone to be like, oh, we're besties. Like they need to see you a lot. And so, at a high level, building a brand like that will guarantee that more people will engage in more stuff because they feel connected, right? That's just all of us. The second thing at a high level you could think about is creating something, whether it's paid or free, that people are dying to get their hands on. And when you're newer to business, this can be a little hard because you're like, I don't really know. I'm just doing like a protein cheat sheet. Y'all, there are a million protein cheat sheets. Now, I'm not saying that your audience of folks, friends, family members, acquaintances, maybe it's a small audience of people who mostly you know them, they're probably following you and like maybe 2 other fitness people. So if you put together a protein cheat sheet, chances are they will want it because they're not seeing it like you and I are seeing it, right? We're in an echo chamber of perimenopause, whatever. And so a lot of us are seeing a lot of the same things. But something like that is more what I consider to be commodity. And what I mean by that is that if you have some kind of like, let's just say that you are creating a lead magnet and you're like, okay, protein cheat sheet, sure, that would definitely like solve a known problem that people are having, which is number one most important thing when it comes to a lead magnet is you need to be solving a problem that the lead knows they are having. So for example, if someone goes, I want to build muscle, I want to stop cravings and feeling hungry all the time, and I want to I don't know, I just want to feel fuller for longer. Great, then we can say like, hey, you need to get protein up. And I do think that people are savvy to this, especially in our demographic. When I say our demographic, I mean like over 35. I feel like people are savvy to this, to where they're like, yes, I know I need to get my protein up. So I need ideas. Like I need meal prep ideas. I need healthy, fun, delicious protein ideas, things I can do on the go, whatever. So maybe a protein cheat sheet would do well. But, so number one, it needs to solve a known struggle. because we can't sell them on the problem to then sell them on the solution. They have to already know that they have this problem. And the thing that you have to create needs to solve this problem in a simple and clear and unique way. So I'll share with you guys our number one lead magnet at JillFit. It's evergreen lead magnet, which means like people can get anytime. Is called it's not even called anything. It says it's 20 ways to make $2,000 in the next 30 days. 20 ways to make $2,000 in the next 30 days. I know that my ideal client is a fitness professional or a health professional who would love to make an extra 2K this month, and they're looking for ideas. And so for me, it's not like, hey, I'm going to give you this, 60-minute workshop on how to make money on the internet, right? That's big and robust. It is so simple. It's so straightforward. It is just so clear the problem that it solves. The problem is I would like to make $2,000 this year. I would like a cash infusion. I would like a cash injection this month. So that one has always done well. It's really easy for people to grab. Now, I don't have any control over if they actually download it or if they open it or if they use it. I have no control over that, but I certainly have control over how exclusive or how compelling or irresistible I can message that lead magnet. Right? It's very simple. It's very clear. It's very straightforward. I'm not having to sell a problem. The problem already exists. I would like to make more money. The problem is I would like to make more money. Great. Here's 20 ways to do that in the next 30 days. It's quantifiable, it's specific, and it is tangible. So something like that will do better. People will engage for something like that. They'll drop the keyword for something like that. When it comes to a paid offer, the offer needs to be irresistible. And I know we use that term a lot. I've done whole episodes on like how to create your irresistible offer. So something like 12-week fitness program for women over 40, like it's not all that compelling, right? It's pretty vague, encompasses a lot of different things. So it doesn't say exactly what it is. So when we have the promise itself needs to be compelling. So for example, I had a client, shout out to Artemis, who did a paid offer, 6 weeks, and it was called 6x6. And it was lose 6 pounds and 6 inches in 6 weeks. And I thought it was so straightforward. It was so clear, and it did really well because it was just like, okay, the promise is super clear. The deliverables were like, she's going to get one-on-one coaching. They get customized, meal planning. They get customized training program, whatever is a one-on-one coaching offer. And it did really well because it was super clear and it was irresistible. The tangible and specific promise was something people actually wanted. And so again, if people aren't engaging in stuff, it doesn't mean they don't like you. It just means that the way you're packaging it is not enough to get them to stop the scroll and give a shit. And so all of that to say, I love this because it means that it's in our control. I think sometimes it can feel frustrating when we just feel like no one does anything. We like throw our hands in the air, like no one does anything. No one engaged with me. I just feel like that's a dead end. I am always looking at it like, what can I do on my side of the street to get people excited for this thing, to make this offer more irresistible, to get them to be so excited for this thing because it's speaking to a known problem that they are having right now in their business or whatever your demographic is or whatever your sort of industry is. So I do think those are two high level things we have to look at. And these things take time, y'all. So when I said build a brand, there's a lot of connection, relatedness, authority, and consistency. That takes time. Same thing with creating something that people want. Messaging is a skill. Putting together something, knowing who your ideal client is and really understanding their inner dialogue, their frustrations, their challenges, their stream of consciousness. Like in order to create a solution for that ideal client that is so fucking compelling, they can't help but stop the scroll and drop the keyword. You have to know your ideal client well. And if you don't, you're not talking to them, or maybe you haven't had a lot of clients. I get that, but no one starts out knowing exactly their ideal client. That's why one of the things that I do in FBA is we go through an exercise called niche and pitch. And in that, we actually break down exactly what the thoughts, feelings, emotions, we call these psychographics, inner dialogue, frustrations, challenges, desired outcomes. We do all of that for your ideal client. And oftentimes your ideal client is a previous version of you. So you might have to think back to 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. What were you thinking? Don't think about it from the lens of who you are now, because you're on the other side of the transformation and it ain't going to land with the person you're trying to attract. So you have to look at who that ideal client is. And maybe it's a previous version of you. So you need to jog your memory and go back to, what was I thinking at that time? Sometimes this shit is embarrassing. but that's how you connect. And so again, these give me a lot of solace because I'm like, oh, I can affect these things, right? It just takes more time. It takes more reps. It takes more getting in the trenches. It takes more, I don't know, innovation, thoughtfulness. And so at a high level, those are two things we can think about. Now let's get into more of the nitty gritty. So I also want to put an asterisk here. Understand that when people aren't engaging in stuff, it's not because they hate you. It's not because you shouldn't be doing business. It's not because you're bad at this. It's just that they are busy. They have very limited attention span, like all of us, by the way. And oftentimes, if they're disengaging from, let's say, a paid offer, like maybe they paid you for something and you find them, they're just like, God, they're ghosting you. They're not really, reaching out. You're reaching out on text, you're reaching out on email, you're reaching out on Messenger, and they're just not responding back. Oftentimes, it's not because they don't like you or want you, it's because they're embarrassed or they're feeling ashamed, like they fell off. And I mean, I've even been in that position where I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to call it a wash. And like, I don't want to be pulled back in because I've already made the decision that I'm out. People act like we act. So think to yourself, like, oh yeah, when was the last time I was paying attention to someone's launch? You might be paying attention a little more because you're in the industry, but oftentimes you're not. You might just get an email out of the blue and you're like, oh, that person's opening their card. I wonder what that is. And then you don't read the email because you're like on your way to work or you're on your way to a client, you're on your way to get on a Zoom call, right? So even us, we do it. And maybe you flag it and you go, you know what? I'm going to come back to that email. And then you don't. Again, people are us. We're all the same. So oftentimes when someone disengages, it's not because they hate you. It's because they've already fallen off. They feel embarrassed. They feel ashamed. They're not following through. Maybe they don't want the attention on them anymore. Like, oh, just go without me, right? Also, sometimes the activation energy can feel too big to get pulled back in, right? So oftentimes with FBA students, if one of them messages me or someone comments a thing and says, "Hey, you guys, like, I want to get back to this. I got off of my education for a little bit, or life happened, or whatever, and I want to get back into the FDA content. Where should I start?" Like sometimes it's a heavy lift. Not everyone wants to go back in. They just go, "Oh God, the thought of like watching trainings. God, I'm just not in that headspace anymore." So I think that if we can have like this radical empathy, and when I say empathy, I mean just like understanding people's worlds better, not necessarily like sympathizing, right? But like understanding someone's world better. I think that we can get a lot further in understanding this and managing our own disappointment or frustration around this stuff. So I'm going to give you some of my solutions. Number one, stop expecting anything. I know that this sounds really depressing, but this is where I operate from. I don't expect anything. And I think when you start there, you can start having solutions. So what I mean by that is if I go, okay, I'm going to assume that no one's going to read this sales page. Great. Okay. So I might have to take some of the sales page copy and put it into emails. I'm gonna have to be like, all right, let me take this section of the sales page and put that directly into an email for somebody. And then I'm gonna take this part of the sales page, I'm gonna put that directly into a reel on social media because I'm going, they're not gonna read the sales page. And some of the frequently asked questions, maybe they're not gonna read those. So I need to put those somewhere else. I'm gonna send a reminder email. I know they're probably not going to read it, so I'm going to probably send 3 reminder emails. I'm going to send a reminder emails. I'm going to bonus them for coming to calls. I'm going to gamify it if I can. And I'm going to use a third-party app like Add to Calendar so they can add to their calendar because I'm like, I want them to add it to their calendar so at least it's there. As soon as I assume no one reads anything or does anything or looks at anything, now I can get strategic. Now I can get innovative. Now I can get creative with ways that I can help with repetition. Yeah, of course, maybe you have 1 or 2 people that read things and maybe get multiple things, but for the majority, they're not going to. At a high level, you can create what's called like a trusting environment for people. So there's no judgment. This is one of the things we focus a lot on FBA because I'm very aware. I've worked with beginners to business enough times that I realize that beginners specifically are so sensitive to needing to do everything perfectly. And if they don't, that they just sort of, they just sort of dissipate. Like it just sort of goes away because there's really nothing tethering them to building their business. Now, it's one thing for me or someone who has an established business, they can't just go away. But for someone who's starting their business, there's literally nothing tethering them to their business. They can just stop posting. They can just close their account down. And pretty much no one's going to notice. Maybe that sounds depressing to you guys, but to me, that's really something that I'm trying to solve for. When I work with beginners, I'm like, okay, so how can I create a situation in FBA where people feel seen, recognized, not judged, free to go at their own pace, not feel behind, even if they're not getting the results moment to moment. Like if someone gives me $10,000, I'm like, all right, fuck, I'm on the hook, right? Like, and that's for all of us. Someone gives you $10,000, like, all right, I got to do this now. But if there isn't any incentive, right, then how is someone going to continue going? So, this is where, as a coach, we have the ability to help them manage their own expectations. So, in FBA, we create like a very low stakes environment, meaning I don't require people to have their videos on. Other coaches do. That's fine. I totally get it. I do for my mastermind members. Like my mastermind has to have their videos on. But for FBA students, I'm like, look, these people are scared. A lot of them are scared to even unmute on a call. I understand that because it's like, I don't want to waste Jill's time, or is this a stupid question or whatever? Not everybody, but some people. And so I just normalize all that. And I say that ahead of time. I get ahead of it. I'm like, look, you're super excited to start right now. At some point, your excitement is going to wane. Here's how you stay in the game. And so there's no judgment. People don't feel behind. They can go at their own pace. I'm like, whatever you do is great. You're not doing it wrong. You don't have to be perfect. Messy action, post and move, like all of these kind of mantras that get people to go, okay, I'm going to like lower the barrier to entry and make this so easy for them to stay the course. And that's at like a higher level. So what I mean by that is like, this is just creating a trusting environment. We started doing a kickoff call at JillFit for FBA students. And it's so great because the kickoff call sort of sets the tone for all of these things. And so I can say it ahead of time. I'm like, look, at some point you're going to want to disengage. That's not because you're a bad person. That's just all of us. So let's talk about how you can stay involved. What are you going to do? What's the word? What is the olive branch that you're going to grab onto? Let's talk about that before it happens so that when it happens, you go, oh, Jill told me this was going to happen. Great. How do we get back in? Because ultimately, I want you guys to get the result. And obviously, and you want to also get the result. So let's have that conversation ahead of time. So by creating that trusting environment, there's no judgment. They're free to be themselves. Do as much as you can on your side of the street. You maybe can lead a horse to water. Maybe you can't make them drink, but you can make them very thirsty by doing what you can on your side of the street. And I think oftentimes coaches, especially newer, we just sort of give up a little too soon. And I understand why, because we have expectations of like, hey, I'm putting all this time and energy into. They should see that, acknowledge that. Maybe you don't think that consciously, but I realize over time that I'm like, okay, if this is just the norm, then I need to concede. I need to figure out what I'm going to do that's going to be above and beyond to make sure people actually do the things they buy, or actually follow through on the things they download, or keep up with the material, even though it's hard to do. So doing as much as we can on the side of the street. The other thing is, y'all, remember, just because you sold them the program doesn't mean you stop selling. What I mean by that is, if you send reminder emails out, let's say you're doing a group coaching offer and there's 8 weeks, and every week there's a call, you need to send out reminders for that call. And not only a reminder, you need to be like, on this week's call, here's exactly what we're going to be covering. I don't want you to miss it because we're going to be covering this, 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 and this. And you can bet your ass that I am using compelling messaging and copy to do that. I'm not being like, hey, this week we're going to talk about carbs. No, I'm like, hey, this week we're going to talk about carb cycling and why and who it's for and who it's not for. What you need to look out for if you start doing it, some of the missteps some of the mistakes you'll make when they do carb cycle, some of how to tweak things once you do carb cycling, right? Like that's what I'm talking about. I'm piquing their curiosity. You bet your ass I'm using marketing copy even after they buy, because I need to sell them doing the stuff. Yes, I sold them the product or the program or the course, but I have to sell them on following through. So I understand that I need to keep selling after the initial sale. When I send email reminders, I'm selling it. When I am I'm in a Facebook group, I'm selling them on being in the Facebook group. So for example, let's say I have people in a Facebook group, I have 20 people in there, and maybe only like 3 or 4 are engaging consistently. And I'm like, God, these people are not engaging. Or maybe they're not even seeing the post or not logging to Facebook, whatever it is. I'm taking a screenshot And maybe there's like an awesome conversation happening in there with those 3 or 4 people. I'm taking a screenshot of that. I'm putting that into an email to all the 20 people. And I'm saying, hey, you guys, I don't want you to miss this. This conversation was fire. Go here, put your comments in. Like, I'm literally taking and showcasing stuff that they're doing in the Facebook group to build a sense of FOMO, to elicit FOMO. Go in the page. Look what's happening without you. Look at all this good, juicy shit that's happening without you. You have to keep selling after the initial sale. If you are doing a course of some kind, you want people to follow through, even if you're doing a group coaching offer that maybe has some kind of, educational backbone, you want to send emails every week. So when people start FBA, they get 6 months of emails every single week from me with where we are in the curriculum. And it's like giving them context. It's like, hey, here's the training for this week, but here's why you should care about that. Here's the context for why this matters. These are long emails. I don't know if people are reading the whole thing, but I'm always giving them those too. I'm not going, well, they didn't come to a call, I guess they're not going to learn it. No, I'm not that. Like, I'm not just prideful. I'm not proud. I'm just like, no, I'm going to do what I can just to show them how important this is and get them to come to the call, because that's how important this is. So email-based education, weekly automated emails as people are going through a course, as people are going through a DIY, as people are going through a group offer. And you can also incentivize people by gamifying things. So one of the things we did this year was we launched a fitness program called the Built Blueprint. And some people just purchased the program and other people wanted to do it with us. We had like we had a community and accountability group. And in that group, we had probably like about 100 people, and we gamify it. So it's 10 weeks. And every single day, there is an accountability thread in the group. So it's pinned to the top of the page. It says, hey, here's the workout for the day. Comment below what weights you did, how you were feeling. Do you need any modifications, whatever. And then even on the days that there's no workout, we still post. We still pin something to the top of the page and we say, hey, it's a day off. What are you up to? And people post pictures of their kids and they post pictures of what they're doing and, whatever. And it's just a way for us to get to know each other. And at the end of the week on Sundays, everyone who has completed all of the workouts for the week gets to go into a drawing, and we do a weekly winner. And every single week. And I love the weekly winner. I'd much rather that than like a monthly winner or a winner at the end of 10 weeks, because I want someone to know that if they have a shitty week, maybe they're traveling a lot or, whatever, they just don't get all their workouts in, they can start fresh the next week. No worries. So what happens is oftentimes people from a place of maybe perfectionism or whatever will go, well, I missed a workout, so I guess I'm out of the running, or guess I'm not going to do any of the workouts, right? It's this very perfectionist sort of all or nothing thinking we have. So instead, every single week you have an opportunity to win. You had a shitty week, no worries. Like, there's weeks that I couldn't get all the workouts in. So I'm like, all right, I'll start next week. So if we can incentivize them by gamifying it so that there's like, oh, I can see that I can do this. And then I go for a drawing and there's like prizes or there's recognition or there's some kind of acknowledgement. If we can do that, that will also help. At the end of the day, these are all like little things that we do at JillFit. We've done whole episodes on like fulfillment and how you guys can, like, some of the stuff we do on fulfillment side, this is what we're talking about, right? When we're doing fulfillment, we are filling on someone's purchase, but you can also do these things from a lead magnet, even if it's free. So for example, say you're doing a free workshop. I would not just assume that people are going to come because they sign up for it. I would send reminder emails a week ahead of time. I'd send a reminder the day before. I'd send a reminder the morning of. I'd send an email an hour before, and I would send an email when you were starting the webinar. And I would also do a show up bonus or two. Everyone who shows up live gets X, Y, and Z, gets to go into a drawing for this. Everyone's going to get this one big bonus. I would also use something like add to calendar to get them to put it on their calendar so that it's taking up that real estate and they make it a priority. I would also have people RSVP, respond back to this email, let me know you're going to be there. I would also do a drawing for people to ask questions. I'd be like, hey, if you throw your question in, you may get your question answered. I'm going to answer 10 questions from people who show up. I would make it so fucking juicy that there's no reason why they can't. Now, even with all of that said, not everyone's going to show up. Just so you guys know, from like a contextual perspective, industry standard, if you're doing a single workshop that's free, we'd be happy with a 20 to 25% show up rate, single workshop. So that means if you have 100 people sign up for this workshop, I never assume all 100 are going to come. I never even assume 50 are going to come. I'm grateful if I see 20 to 25 people there out of 100. So a lot of this has to do with just managing your own expectations, but also knowing what industry standard is. So for example, if I have a client that's like, oh my God, I have 50 people in this program, but only 40 of them join the Facebook group. I'm like, holy shit, that's amazing. right? Like I'm thinking like if even half join the Facebook group, I'm happy. So I think a lot of times you have to know what industry standards are. Now, it's not that we can't have, can't do better than industry standards. But I think if your expectation is that everyone's going to do everything, everyone's going to open every email, everyone's going to read everything, everyone's going to go line by line through all your shit, you're just going to be sorely disappointed. So a lot of this comes down to managing your own expectations. And then when I say like expecting nothing, expecting very little allows for you to then be grateful. So imagine if, I don't know, let's say I don't know, imagine I had 20 people in a program and I'm hosting a live call. These are my paying clients at a group offer, and only 5 show up. Now, I'd hope that more than would because these people have paid. So hopefully they have a little more skin in the game. But let's say only 5 show up. And I'm like visibly disappointed that only 5 came or only 3 came. How do you think those 3 people who showed up are going to feel? Right? Like they're going to be like, or I'm like, like I'm disappointed. And I'm like, meanwhile, these people are taking the time, taking the energy. They're there, taking time out of their day to be there. Like, I'm going to show up and be like, fuck yeah, let's go, right? 3 people, I got you. Let's fucking do a one-on-one session now, right? How am I going to change it to reward the people who are doing the stuff rather than being frustrated at those who don't? It's insulting to the people who are showing up. It's insulting to the people who are paying attention. This is why it's so frustrating to me when, people on social media, maybe mainly like a Threads or something, or Twitter is like, no one likes posts anymore. Or like no one even DMs the word. And meanwhile, like people who do like follow or like, you're probably like, what am I, fucking chopped liver? Like, I just feel like it's a really bad look. It's insulting to people who are actually doing the stuff. So instead of being frustrated and resentful, could we just be grateful? Because if we start to feel frustrated, resentful, and let down all the time by our stuff in our business, things that are out of our control, and I would say I put an asterisk there because a lot of this is in our control. If we're constantly stressed that people are not doing enough in our business, then we're going to quit. And I don't want that for you guys. So I know this is a long episode, but I wanted that. And I was kind of thinking this as I was outlining, and I'm like, this is just a really big topic. But it is a tangential sort of topic. And it's something that comes up quite a bit with a lot of my clients. And I wanted to have this discussion to give you guys some context, to give you some like high level insights, and also to give you some tactical in the trenches strategies to get people doing more. And I think a lot of this has to do with expectation management, like understanding industry standards. That's why something like FBA is great, because I see people all the time so frustrated. Like even people who maybe are not my clients, they're like, hey, Jill, I did this thing and I only sold 5. And I'll be like, well, how many leads did you have? And they're like 10. I'm like, that's fucking amazing. Like, did you think all 10 were going to buy? Sometimes you have to be in a coaching container like FBA to like know what the reality is. And I think people who don't have mentorship constantly feel let down when things aren't going perfectly all the time. And I just am here to tell you, and I don't want this to sound depressing, but like most people will not do most stuff. And it's not because, again, they hate you or they don't want to do it or whatever. It's just literally they are busy. They have minimal time, tons of competing priorities. Maybe they do feel embarrassed because they're not following through on things the way that they know they quote should. And so we need to allow for there to be grace here. And we have to allow for ourselves to feel grateful for those who actually do the thing, and also account for all the people who won't. So for example, if I get, I don't know, I don't know, I get like 100 leads, I'm going, all right, 50% of them probably aren't even opening the emails. Maybe 25% are going into spam, right? So I'm like, all right, so I'm accounting for that. I never expect if I get 100 leads for all 100 people to get into their inbox, for them to open it, to them to read it. So we have to count for that. We go, okay, there's only going to be a certain percentage of people who just, it goes into their junk and we're never to be heard from again. Then there's certain amount of people just like not going to open the emails. And then there's certain people who are going to open the emails, not going to read them, just delete them. So can I be grateful for the 20 people out of 100 who read the whole thing, who respond back, who do the thing? Yes. So if I want more than 20 people to do the thing, then I probably need 500 leads instead of 100. Maybe this makes you feel depressed, especially if you have small numbers where you're like, God, Jill, like I don't have a big email list. So every lead really counts. Great. But then we can talk about like, okay, how do we get our email list bigger? Do we get better at marketing, messaging, more compelling lead magnet? Do we use ads? Then we solve for that problem. And so I think a lot of this comes with time and experience in the industry, which is why I think people who are newer to the space always feel the most let down or most disappointed. And I look at my mentor and some of the people, my colleagues, And like, we're grateful constantly. Like, to me, I'm grateful if anyone does anything. And I think when you start from that place, then you can be even like surprised and delighted if more than what you expect end up doing stuff. And then you can solve for the rest, right? When I say solve, I mean do even more on your side of the street. Okay, I know it's a long episode, but I wanted to get into this because there's a lot of different parts to this. I want to give you some context and give you some high level strategies as well, some in the trenches strategies. Hopefully, this is answering some of the questions that you've had, giving you a little bit of a different insight, maybe a reframe. And I want you guys to have successful launches. If you're doing a launch this fall, I want you to have a successful launch. I want you to follow all the way through, and I want you to have massive success. So keep me in the loop. Let me know. And of course, if you are not on the FBA interest list, the link is in the show notes. Details soon. Thanks, guys, for being here as usual, and I will see you on the next one. Bye, y'all.